Good morning, Bucknutters. It is Tuesday, March 8th, 2016. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and some serious change. Got an interesting and a little bit different show for you today. Going to be joined by Dane Brugler, senior NFL draft analyst for NFL Draft Scout and CBS Sports. We are going to go through his top 50 and break down all of the Buckeyes that are on there. Obviously, there's a ton of them. Dane is the best in the business, so it's a little bit long for the show today, shocker, but I think you're really going to enjoy it. Also want to let you guys know that spring football starts. We're taping this morning at around 8 a.m. Spring football. Steve Hellwagon and Dave Biddle are there with bells on, and we'll get a chance to see some practice this morning and then interview Urban Meyer at 11 a.m. approximately. Probably going to be more like 11:30 a.m. as spring practice gets kicked off in earnest. As far as our access to it, and therefore your access to it, besides what inside information we can get out from embedded sources, the next media availability will be on Thursday, which should be interesting because you're going to get Greg Schiano, Luke Fickell, some other assistant coaches, and a selection of players. As for now, sit back and enjoy Dane Brugler, best in the business, on the draft and your Buckeyes.
As promised, Bucknutters, we are seriously thrilled to be joined by Dane Brugler, senior NFL draft analyst for NFL Draft Scout and CBS Sports. Obviously now our new partners in crime. But Dane also probably be noteworthy to some on the show. Dane, a Youngstown native who has made it as a draft scout. Youngstown?
Warren, technically. Born and raised, and went to Mount Union and Alliance, and then now in Frisco, Texas. Moved down here, and my wife and I love it down here, so we just decided to stay. But Northeast Ohio native, and now in Texas.
And anyone who picked up on that, no offense, Dane, there's a little Youngstown in the voice. I've still heard it, so we're proud to be representing here nationally. Okay, Dane is the best in the business. People think Bill Kurelic for the NFL. Dane has made what I think a lot of people love, the draft, into a career, and not many guys have done that. And we really appreciate him taking the time out of his schedule, because my guess is Dane's media appearance schedule is about as booked as anybody on the earth right now. Dane updated his top 50 post-combine. It was on CBSSports.com on Friday. But we're just going to go down the list here, and as everybody on Bucknuts knows, we've covered this intensely, but Dane really just has more information than anybody. And we're going to go down the rankings of the top 50 with the Buckeyes, starting with his highest rated, number 4 overall, Joey Bosa. The common belief among Bucknutters is that what's happened since the end of the season of Combine is nitpicking, a guy who's been held up there for so long, now they're kind of shaking him down. Where do you stand on Bosa, kind of now that you've got the full picture on him?
Yeah, and Bosa, I don't think much has changed at all. He's one of the top 5 players in this draft. I thought he went to the Combine and did fairly well. I really don't care about the 4.8 40-yard dash time. I care about what he did in the short area drills, the 3-cone, the shuttles, and he was outstanding. 6.89 3-cone, 4.21 short shuttle. That's exactly what you want to see from a pass rusher. And as physically gifted as Joey is, what you appreciate most about his game is his technique, the way he uses his hands, his leverage. He's instinctive. He knows how to beat the rhythm of the blocker, and that's all you need to do as a pass rusher. It's nice if you can have Von Miller speed and scream off the edge, but if you can break the rhythm of the blocker in front of you, then you're going to be disruptive, and you're going to make plays in the pocket, and that's exactly what Joey Bosa does. And so for those reasons, that's why he's one of the top players in this draft, has a chance to be the top defensive player drafted. And you look at the teams picking top 5, the Cowboys at 4. To me, I think that's an ideal fit for what Rod Marinelli does in that defense. And so if he's there, I think not only is it a need, but it matches exactly kind of what the Cowboys are looking with a defense, an impact player in defense.
And no doubt the loss of Randy Gregory, though slightly predictable, may affect that. So that's a perfect segue into the next player. For those who don't know, you mentioned earlier, Dane lives in Frisco, Texas. That is a suburb of Dallas, and Dane is a fixture on the DallasCowboys.com draft show. I'm going to blow some smoke here, Dane. That's the best draft coverage there is. I know some people don't like the Cowboys, but it's not even really that much of a if you love the draft and want to hear some inside information or really great reviews, this is the place to be. He does it with Brian Broaddus who was a former NFL scout employed by DallasCowboys.com, and I believe David Helmer is the reporter.
Yeah,
it's a great
David
show.
Helmer, yeah. We enjoy doing it. It's and like you said, even though it is DallasCowboys.com, we cover the draft from every angle and from every viewpoint. So it's a lot of fun and definitely a lot of good info on that show. And every Friday, so yeah, I encourage people to check it out.
So that brings us to Ezekiel Elliott. He's your fifth guy on the board.
Mm-hmm.
And really, to me, the only intrigue left with Elliott is whether the Cowboys pick him at 4. I understand the idea of not picking a running back at 4 and value. I totally get that. But here are the two things that I can't get out of my brain. Ezekiel Elliott behind that offensive line for an extended period of time, to me, I can't see, barring injury, a safer bet in the draft in terms of where you would play somebody. And I would never want to call someone a Hall of Famer, but in terms of putting someone into a position where you can check almost every single box, do you think he's worthy at 4?
I think he's absolutely worthy at 4. And this is where we get into the discussion about running back value and how high do you draft one. But in this draft, and for a player like Ezekiel Elliott, he is a top 5 player. And for a lot of the reasons that you mentioned, he's such an all-around a complete back, and not only as a runner, but as a receiver, as a blocker. I mean, it's all there. Really going to miss watching him on Saturdays, but really eager to start watching him on Sundays, especially if you would go to a team like Dallas. When I look at it, Dallas, yeah, it does make sense, and I can make a strong argument that he'll be the best player on the board when Dallas picks. But they've invested so much in that offensive line that I feel like they think they can put just about anyone back there and be effective. Darren McFadden had 1,100 yards rushing for the Cowboys last year. I think they're going to look at that value and think they can get an impact player on defense and then maybe find that running back later on, although I would love to see Zeke in a Cowboys uniform because, like you said, behind that offensive line, in that offense, he could really do some damage. And I think Tony Romo would be ecstatic at that pick because he does impact the passing game in a lot of ways. So Zeke, I think he's going to end up somewhere top 12. I think it's going to be similar to last year with Gurley to the Rams, where that marriage, Gurley to the Rams, wasn't mentioned a lot. That's kind of a surprise, and I think it'll be similar this year with Zeke. I think we'll have a surprise team maybe that doesn't have that glaring need at running back, but at some point he's just too good to pass up. He's a safer pick in this draft. Somewhere in the top 12, a team will pounce on him, and they'll get a very good player.
Number 12 on your list, the highest riser from the Combine, does not surprise me one bit, Darron Lee. To me, Lee is one of those guys who his floor is just extremely high.
Yeah, I think that's a safe way to put it. And he's very impressive, only a redshirt sophomore. A little disappointing that it came out. I'd love to see him go back and get better, but I don't blame him because he has a chance to be the top drafted linebacker this year. And he's aided by some injuries. Jalen Smith, obviously, from Notre Dame, and then Miles Jack, who teams are still kind of in wait-and-see mode with his knee. But Darron Lee, you're absolutely right about helping himself at the Combine. 4.47, 40-yard dash. He's outstanding in the other drills as well. He's for a player that's so young to the linebacker position, he just looks so natural doing it. Obviously, a quarterback in high school. Played some scout team safety when he was redshirting. He played that walkout linebacker role, so he was asked to do a little bit of everything for the Buckeyes: cover, blitz, play in space, play man-to-man in the slot. He can do a lot of things with his long arms, aggressive hands. His awareness, his instincts are there. They're outstanding. He's a little leaner than you want. You want to see him continue to fill out, but he's already 230+. So I don't think that's a question. I really liked the way he came in and filled in for Ryan Shazier and didn't miss a beat. He was a huge part of Ohio State's playoff run in 2014. So I think in today's NFL, and when I talked to Ryan, or when I talked to Darron at the Combine, he kind of mentioned this, but he's just that perfect new age linebacker, that run and hit, very active, that attacking mindset. Doesn't have that prototypical size, but he has the prototypical speed of what you want in today's NFL. Can do a lot of things, play 3 downs. So I think Darron Lee is going to be a hot commodity on draft day. Probably end up going somewhere top 15.
He just seems like a better fit for the pros and even than college. And for anybody that knows Darron, you probably know this from talking to him, he's sharp as a tack. So in terms of investing in a guy long term, he's going to get better. All right, the next guy on your list is not technically a Buckeye, but obviously he generates a lot of interest around here. Number 16 overall, Noah Spence. He formed a bookend with Joey Bosa. There's kind of an ongoing discussion here with one of our lead writers, Dave Biddle. When it was rumored Spence might go almost as high as 10th overall, Dave believes he will fall into the second round because of the off-field concerns. Where do you see Noah Spence eventually settling in when this is all said and done?
And he's a true wild card because of because of the off-field stuff. I mean, on the field, he's a first-round player. He plays a premium position at pass rusher. I thought he held himself to the Senior Bowl. And the combine, not the best numbers, but I don't think he really torpedoes his draft status either. It really comes down to the interview process, how he does one-on-one with teams. That's what's really going to determine where he ends up on draft day. Like I said, a true wild card. I still think he ends up somewhere first round because he plays a premium position. And it just comes down to how he does with each team. And when they ask him about the issues, that's something that I think I give Noah a lot of credit. He has been upfront about everything that's happened. And he's even said that he could have come out last year and been a late-round pick, but he decided, hey, you know what, I'm going to go to the FCS level. I'm going to keep myself clean. I'm going to tell them to drug test me every day. And he passed double-digit drug tests at Eastern Kentucky. And he's proven that, football is important to him, at least in the last year. Now, does that mean he'll never revert back to his bad habits? No, and there's no way to know that. It's a risk-reward type of situation. But looking in the back half of round one, a team like the Jets, a team like the Cardinals, I mean, we know Bruce Arians is not shy about taking chances on maybe some character guys. So I think he's going to end up somewhere in that first round because the talent is too great. And someone will take a chance on that baggage.
Number 21 on your board, you have him a little lower than some. Cornerback Eli Apple, another guy who seriously helped himself at the combine, but he ran fast. You could see it. Of all the guys we're talking about, his ranking and his tape probably don't match up. Risk or not?
Well, he's a risk because it's a projection. He's only a redshirt sophomore. He's only 20 years old, so you're still projecting him. I mean, teams are going to draft players not for what they've done, but for what they think they're going to do. And so for Eli Apple, he has some rough tape. He needs to learn not to hold, how to get his head turned, find the ball, make a play. But I think teams are so intrigued by the size at 6'1", 200 pounds, 31.5-inch arms, and the speed you mentioned at 4.40 at the combine. They're so intrigued by the size, speed, athleticism that they're willing to take a chance on that in the first round because they see potential to be a number one corner in the league. Is he there right now? No. But that's where, scouts have to be fortune tellers almost and project how he's going to do making that transition and how do his skills and traits, how do they translate? And so I think he has a lot of good tape mixed in with some inconsistent tape. But again, I think teams are going to draft him for his traits and say that we can coach the rest out of him. He can be a starter for us. So I think that's why Eli Apple, again, another premium position at corner. I think he's going to be one of the top 3 corners drafted somewhere in the top 25.
Yeah, and he was on an island quite a bit, and he's handsy, you know what I mean? So if they can get that out of his game, I think that'll save him. Number 27 overall, Taylor Decker, just a consistent plug and play.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to put him. It didn't have a great combine, but didn't really need it. I mean, his combine or his tape speaks for itself. The only thing you really worry about, he's taller, and so he had a tough time with some smaller rushers who were able to get underneath him. But at the same time, Decker is able to sink, neutralize power at the point of attack. He can play left tackle, he can play right tackle. I think some teams even see him inside as a guard. So I think when you factor in his balance, his hands, his ability just to neutralize quickness at the point of attack, I don't see a high ceiling with Taylor, but I do think he can be a plug-and-play type of player and see early reps for an NFL team.
Do you think he's a right or left tackle ultimately?
I think he's probably best on the right side, but I think he can hang on the left. I think that position flex will really help him. And I think he can also move inside the guard. So I think that versatility definitely is a feather in his cap. And for Decker, in today's NFL, you want your left tackle and right tackle to almost be on the same plane in terms of talent level, because pass rushers are being moved around constantly. So I think Decker definitely has the versatility to play both.
That's a great point. Number 35 on your board, Michael Thomas. We had heard that he maybe didn't do as well in the interviews as he could have. Had you heard the same?
Yeah, and, that's something that you've taken a note of over the years. Obviously, his career got off to a slow start at Ohio State as a freshman, and then he had a red shirt. And a big part of that was because he was a little late picking up the offense, digesting the playbook. And I think that's something that, might take some time in the NFL as well. And that's not to say that, he won't make an impact as a rookie, but it won't be a flawless transition. And historically, wide receivers have the toughest transition in terms of being able to play right away because they're just so used to seeing things differently at the college level, a lot more press in the NFL, a lot more routes in the playbook. So I think Michael Thomas might see a little bit of a learning curve, but the talent is awesome, and that's why he's going to be a top 50 pick.
So we'll try and go quick here because I know you're busy. Vonn Bell is the last Buckeye in your top 50 that came out, number 36. Vonn didn't run, and then I thought had a kind of a silly interview where I'm not even sure he was being serious or he was being humble when he talked about not playing hard all the time. If you don't work out and have a kind of a weird interview like that, is everything coming down to March 11th for him, the pro day, or is his tape good enough to keep him in the top 35, as it were?
Yeah, Vonn definitely. I was standing right next to him, listening to his quotes at the combine, and he was really, really strange. I mean, I think it was very, very honest, and I think that's just who he is, saying how sometimes, he could get lazy, and he's watching tape with these teams, and they're pointing out some lazy tendencies, and he's agreeing with them, and then he wasn't able to work out. So everything comes down to the pro day for him. I think he definitely needs to perform well to ensure that he's going to be a top 50 type of player. He's one of the top 3 safeties in this draft, and I don't think that's going to change based on the pro day. But in terms of how high he could be drafted, the pro day definitely will matter. And he said at the combine, he wants to be a first-round pick. That's the goal. And so in order for that to happen, I do think you need a positive workout. His tape is strong. We mentioned Darron Lee, how well he did down the stretch on defense in the playoff run. Vonn Bell, same type of thing. He really jumped off the page, put himself on the NFL radar, and then this past season, didn't have the gaudy stats, but they were certainly good enough, and he made an impact, whether it's from the slot, played a little bit single high, played near the line of scrimmage, did a little bit of everything. And Urban Meyer, he said it. He said he's been lucky to be around a lot of good safeties, but Vonn might be the best that he's been around. So that's high praise from Urban. Bell he checks off a lot of boxes. He has the mental and physical toughness that you want. He's active in run support. Not a twitchy athlete, but he has a decisive reactor, and he moves well, collects himself well in space. So I think Vonn Bell brings a lot of versatility to the back end of a defense, and that's why he's ultimately going to be a top 50 pick.
Yeah, I guess if you were nitpicking, you'd like him to be a little bigger. He's just a playmaker, man. 5-star kid he's been a stud since he's gotten here. You know what I mean? He's just one of those guys, just a program stud. Okay, so there were 5 guys that went to the combine, did not make your top 50. I'm not going to ask you to go into all of them, but it's Braxton Miller, Cardale Jones, Josh Perry, Jalen Marshall, Adolphus Washington. You got guys like Nick Vannett, Tyvis Powell. Who jumps out to you from that list? Obviously, I think the people would like to hear you talk about Braxton a little bit. Or maybe Braxton and one of the other guys you think may surprise.
Yeah, Braxton, he's interesting because he's such a phenomenal athlete. He's special. Seeing him at the Senior Bowl, it wasn't even close. There wasn't a corner there that could hang with him. His athleticism. Really, the biggest concern with me with Braxton is as competitive as he is, I'm not convinced that he's going to be able to hold up physically with his injury history, his concussion history. That really worries me. I think a player that could surprise a little bit is Nick Vannett. He was underutilized as a pass catcher in the Ohio State offense. Obviously, showed he could block, but I think he's going to be one of the top 3 or 4 tight ends drafted somewhere in the 3rd or 4th round, come in and be an instant contributor. I think he's probably the best all-around tight end in this class, both as a blocker and receiver. So Vannett can do a lot, and that will really appeal to NFL teams, and likely he'll see the field early and often as a rookie.
Okay, when do you start looking at the rosters of the college team? So, for example, right now, do you have a good sense of who's coming up in the next level for the Buckeyes?
A couple weeks after each draft, and that's what I'll spend the summer focusing on, mostly the seniors, and then a few of the underclassmen I know will be coming out. But, for the most part, I focus on the seniors early, and then throughout the season, as it becomes more evident which underclassmen are coming out, that's when I'll really start to focus on them. But yeah, it's really a 365-day type of thing, trying to find all these guys and who projects well to the pros.
I'm going to make a selfish prediction here because I want to get it on record with you. And this will be a one you can take back to Broadus, and somewhere down the line it'll be impressive because you'll have had it first. Okay. I think the player with the highest chance on the Buckeyes roster right now to be drafted first overall I don't think he's taken a meaningful snap. His name is Isaiah Prince, and he's a left tackle out of the D.C. area.
Okay.
Put that one in your notebook.
I'm writing it down right now.
I'm convinced. First guy to get his black stripe off this past year. The 6'7" power forward who looks natural in his body and just a complete stud. So that was me self-serving, getting it on the record. Once again, Dane Brugler, senior NFL draft analyst for NFL Draft Scout and CBS Sports. He's an incredible follow at @DPBrugler on Twitter. Like I said, if you want to hear some great stuff, listen to him on The Draft Show on the DallasCowboys.com. Dane, is there anywhere else the guys can get you? NFL Draft Scout, where else? Anything else we need to let the people know about?
Yeah, that's the main spot. Follow me on Twitter. I've got a great draft book coming out here, so follow me on Twitter for those details. But, thanks. I appreciate you having me, Dan. It was great. We'll have to do it again.
Definitely. We'll try and have you on before the draft itself. Once again, we really think Dane's the best in the business. Dane, have a great one.
You too. Thanks.